Hello, welcome to Power Fridays Live. It is May 19th, 2023. I am here on Power Fridays Live. We have a vision of impacting the world through sharing transformation, spiritual growth, and leadership development in business for entrepreneurs. And I am super excited to have with me this evening Gerald Price, the real estate G, who has an MBA and who has been in the real estate business for over 20 years. And he is going to share with us all of his wisdom this evening. So I'm very excited to have with us Gerald Price, the real estate G. Welcome to Power Fridays Live.
Hey, Janelle, how you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great. Well, I'm super excited and say I want to say thank you so much for saying yes to being with us this evening. And we're so excited for you to impart your wisdom. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's definitely in line with my purpose to share my ups and downs and my experiences in real estate and in business, and hopefully somebody can learn from that and grow. Um, but just get started with my name, man. I'm Gerald Price Jr. My brand. I'm the real estate G. Um, Originally from Los Angeles, California. Grew up in South Central LA. And other cities, Compton, Watts, and like everybody, had some parents, and my dad's a Marine, and my mother was a pastor, and you know, even as a kid, my mother always encouraged us to go out and do something, and be productive, and so I've been an entrepreneur since I was 10 years old,
Oh,
and
wow.
just growing up, man, we struggled a lot, and I noticed that the hard work wasn't the part. Like my dad worked real hard and very consistent, man. Great example as a father. And but when I looked at my counterparts at school, because I was fortunate to go to school in affluent areas, uh, just there was some things missing from what I was seeing, and what I was experiencing. So when I went to college, I really wanted to learn how to make money with money, and that's when I got into the investment thing. So I studied finance and investing, and a lot of it for me has been trial and error, and you know the secret to my success has really been having really good mentors and being coachable and teachable, and not afraid to make mistakes and get correction. And so
Yes.
that's pretty much how I've grown in business and in real estate. Some of the best mentors in the business for Fortune Builders, longtime member, mastery member. So got some training and tutelage from Dan Merrill and his team, and now I'm working with Grant Cardone, learning from him and his team. Grant and Brandon Dawson, and a lot of others. Napoleon Hill. Robert
Yes.
Kiyosaki. With them not as personal relationships, but I learned from their material and their books, and it's reading it and implementing it. So that's really what it's been, and God has given me an opportunity to have a lot of different jobs in the financial service industry. So, as a certified housing counselor, credit counselor, bankruptcy counselor, um, reverse mortgage counselor, I got trained on the technicals of credit and money and dealing with debt, and got opportunities to consult and counsel, literally hundreds of individuals. So I got to see different examples of, what your financial situations look like. And I got to see how it's not always how much money you make. It's
Yes.
really about what you do with the money that you make. And if you've ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he says right in the beginning of it, you know, um, he said that the wealthy don't work to learn. I mean, don't work for money. They work to learn. But then he also said, in order to get rich, it's you know um, learn the difference between an asset and liability, and then
Mhm.
buy income producing assets. Like that's really what it comes down to. So that's what I've been working on, and even bigger than that, it's really about cash flow.
Mhm.
You know,
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what it's been for me is building my net worth, and that's not always about money in the bank. That's about my balance sheet and what type of assets I carry on my balance sheet, and
Mhm.
how much income they produce.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm like awestruck because I'm like entrepreneur at 10 years old, but then of course fast forward to now. Can you share with us a little bit about like, having a balance sheet, being a business owner and what does that really mean? Because I know a lot of people, they come out here and say, "Oh, no money down loan," and "Oh, I bought a house with no money down." And I remember like Carlton Sheets
Yeah.
commercials and it's like, "Hey, yeah, you can get a house for $2,000." And I'll tell someone, "Oh yeah, you can buy that property for taxes." And I understand that you're the person that can share with people and educate them on that. But what does it really mean to have a net worth? And what does that really mean? Can you tell us about that?
Um, you know, I'm discovering that every day newly. Because I've made a lot of money in cash, and right now, I have some mentors that's helping me um, launch a company with the intentions of taking it public. And so, what I'm learning, and it's kind of like how a good example is Elon Musk. We see him as one of the wealthiest men in the world, but then it's
Yes.
not the what he is how is he that? Where is his wealth calculated? You know, and I saw an example of that on a Instagram reel, and they said, when he purchased Tesla, he didn't take a salary. He held his ownership in convertible shares or stock,
Mm,
basically. And
yes.
so his wealth grows as the company grows, and the company is a publicly traded company. And as I've been a black man all my life, and I thought I was in business. When I was a 10-year-old, I thought I was in business. And you hear it all the time. Okay, yeah, let me start a business. I'm set up LLC. I didn't have an LLC. I was self-employed. You
I
know,
saw greeting cards.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I,
Yeah.
was- I was the candy man. I sold Snickers and blow pops, and I was making so much money. The school told me that I couldn't do that, and then lo and behold, we they started up a candy shop after school. Put me
It,
out of business and then took over the game. Right?
You're right, but that's what Uber did, right?
Yeah.
And some of these companies, it's like they see someone with a great plan, and you don't have the. I remember, going being in like downtown St. Louis. I had no car. I took the bus, but I went grocery shopping. Well, there's
Mhm.
these guys outside, asking me, "Hey, do you need a ride home? You can pay me $10," and that was the hustle. So now what was the hustle for people now becomes a big business.
Yeah.
And and so
Yeah, and so when you look at that, right, there's an organizational chart. There's executives, there's sales, there's marketing, accounting. They got accounts receivable, accounts, payable. It's all of these things. The marketing and branding. Um, it's all these things that make up a business. You know, but then it's like, okay, I'm starting a business, and it's like, no, you're starting a self-employment ship, uh,
right. Yes.
and
There's
and
different rungs of this ladder. It's
and it's all good.
self-employed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's just understanding the distinctions,
Mm,
so the last couple of years, I've been if so in addition to Rich Dad Poor Dad, there's a book called The Cash Flow Quadrants.
right.
And the cash flow quadrants, when I read that book, it just blew my mind because it brought clarity. It laid it out. Employee, self-employed, that's the left side. And then the right side, is business owner and investor.
Hmm.
And it's funny because the business owner and investor is on the i.e. right side, right?
Right side.
And so it's not one is better than the other. They all quadrants have a place, but it's understanding the distinctions, and it's also understanding how the tax code relates to the left
Yes.
side and the right side, how the tax code relates to the employee, the self-employed person, the business owner, and the investor. And you can be all four roles. You can jump between roles. It's levels to it.
Hmm.
As a entrepreneur, I coach and I mentor real estate investors and business owners. And my real estate investors, I teach them the business of real estate. So when if you want to start with wholesaling, it's like, no, yes, you're a real estate investor, but your business is a marketing business.
Right.
Your primary job is lead generation. And your target is motivated sellers.
Right.
And this is how you build your brand. When you set up your We Buy Houses signs, rather than saying We Buy Houses, put your name there.
Right.
Gerald buys houses. So now in your community, when they see Gerald, they know what he does. Like that's how I came up with the real estate G. After 15 years of real estate investing, and like, I would see a strategy and hear about it, and go find a person and learn it. And when you bring me a real estate problem now, I know what to do. Even if that's not my core competency, I've been around so much real estate. I'm constantly learning and constantly networking, and constantly connecting myself with educated people. And so I know where to get the answers.
Right. So being the real estate G stands for greatest, right?
It stands for gangster too.
Gangster.
Don't forget, I'm from LA. So, but no, it really stands for God. That's where the glory. That's who gets the glory.
Yes.
But that's why I'm willing to share the information. Like, I literally spent tens and hundreds of $1,000s on my education.
Hmm.
That's formal and informal, and it's because the difference, or the gap, is access to the right information. you
Right.
know and as we move into the information age, and as this AI thing continues to impact how things are done, entrepreneurship is critical. um in my opinion, and this is with me putting my financial planner hat on. When I look at a person's situation, you know um you definitely need to own real estate because of the
Mhm.
tax advantages. You need to have
Right.
you
Eh,
need to be in business in some type of way because of
mhm.
tax planning. It could be a small business, it could be a home based business, it could be an MLM. You know, it could be a Shopify, or you could do affiliate market, like anything in business, because when you start um, generating income, right, you have to offset some of that income with deductions, so that you can manage your tax liability.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So, like, let's take a step back and distinguish these different levels, right?
Sure.
I know that, from what you just shared, being an independent business owner, then you're not an investor, you're not on the right side, in that. You could be on the left side, being a W-2 employee and being self-employed. Can you give us a better distinguish about, that left side versus right side of the quadrant from the cash flow quadrants by Robert Kiyosaki? Because I know a lot
Yeah.
of people think that, hey, I'm a business owner and they're an independent business owner and they may still be on this left side. So can you give us a distinguish about, like you said earlier, you can have an LLC but not be a business owner. You can still have an LLC and be
Yeah.
self-employed.
So it's a few things, right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, so there's myths out there, right?
Yes.
And one of them is get rich quick. We're conditioned to, when we hear get rich quick, take pause and or that too good to be true. No, that's not it. That's how you get rich, is quick. But there's very specific reasons as to why that is. Like, I'm the same age as Mark Zuckerberg, or I'm close to it. And His net worth is far greater than mine,
Mhm.
and so even look at athletes, it's so it becomes not about time invested, because and when I say get rich quick, let me put some context to it. We're conditioned to go to school, get an education, get a job, save for retirement, like 30, 40 years, and invest in our 401ks and IRAs, with the sole purpose that when we get to retirement age, which is 67 or whatever it is,
Mhm.
65 or whatever, then we can retire and live off of something. And we hope that we have a nest egg. And I see it, and I get so ticked off because that's the information that's being perpetrated in society. You know, oh, pay off your debt, be debt free. It's and some of the best of them. My man Dave Ramsey, Financial
Mhm.
Peace. I rock with Dave, but when he talks about credit and debt, I don't listen to him because that's a lie. How
Right.
you leverage debt to build wealth. I have a concept I call debt positive. My goal is not to be debt free, is to be debt positive, which means when I use debt, it's only to increase cash flow or to increase my net worth, my equity position.
Mhm.
So
Like.
what that looks like is, if you're on the left side, you're an employee, right? Say you're
Mhm.
an employee, you got a job. There's nothing wrong with a job. We have these acronyms, job is just over broke. No, job is just the beginning, because we playing a financial game, and to start that game, you need income. When you start Monopoly, they give you, what is it, 1,500, 2,000, and then every time you pass go, you collect 200. So you got income.
Exactly.
Now, how you win the game is what you do with that income, and you're investing for cash flow. So you're buying assets that when people utilize them, they pay you money,
Exactly. So
you know.
you
And
you
the game, I've been playing that game since I was a little kid, and I'm a beast at it. But I didn't understand the levels of it until I got, actual just different type of understanding, you know. And
Mhm.
there and it's funny because and this is a real estate relation. So when I play the game, how I win a lot of times is I buy on that first block coming out, and that's the hood. And the cost
That's
of
the cheap.
properties is,
Yeah.
yes, the cost of properties is cheap, and it's easy to build hotels there. And if you land on a hotel in the hood, it's not going to break your bank, but it is going to make a dent.
Mhm.
you know and then when you go to the next one, that's like, so this is how I break down buying apartment buildings, right? Because you got different classes of assets, and
Mhm.
I ramble sometimes. And the reason for that is I'm flowing, but it's
Yeah.
also to expose you to different things, because you know you're not gonna watch a YouTube video and learn everything you need to learn, or see an interview and learn everything you need to learn. But the goal is to be exposed to things you didn't know before.
Exactly.
And then now that you've been exposed, you can then deep dive into the information and get a better understanding. So my goal is really just to expose you to the secret of accomplishing wealth and building wealth.
Yes.
And when I say it's there is a concept of get rich quick, that's not saying it's not going to require work.
Yes. Yes.
That's not saying it's not going to require risk.
Right. They
you
didn't
know
say that you don't know about the how many phone calls you make a day to
right,
acquire the assets that you need to require.
right,
People don't see what's going on in the background. They just see the result.
right.
But like you said, your education, your sleepless nights, and all of that, going to look for properties, the gas, the time, the energy. They don't see that. They just hear the glorified, oh yeah, hey, yeah, I'm 6'7" income, 6'7",
Yeah,
I've
they
got
don't
most
they
I
don't
get it.
see,
Yeah.
overnight success, man, is 10 years in the making, and behind the scenes for most
Exactly.
people.
And
It's that.
Exactly. And all of the when you mentioned the athletes earlier, all of those ball players started playing ball that wasn't in high school.
Right.
They started playing ball when they were like in elementary school,
Yep.
and then they put in the work for what 10, 15 years, and then they get to
Find it.
get the
Yep.
acknowledgement. You got to go to
Yep.
college, you sign that contract. But all of those years people forget. It's like how many drills did they have to run? How much practice did they have? How much weight did they have to lift? And so that's all of being in business and how business works and what
Yeah,
happens
I
behind the
played
scenes.
sports. I played sports in high school, and we would go to school at like 6 in the morning. Get up at 6 in the morning, get there, and we wouldn't get home to like after like 8, 9 o'clock.
Wow. Yeah.
We get out of practice around 7. And get out of school at like 4. It was crazy. We leave when it's dark and get home when it's dark.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I'm a decent athlete. I wasn't ever. I probably could have went pro if I put my mind to it, but that I wasn't willing to commit. When I looked at what was required to accomplish that goal, I knew that I wasn't willing to commit that
Mm.
sacrifice because I'm a more of an intellectual, so I knew that I could win with my brain. That was my strategy,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'll share a story. So one of my first businesses was a landscaping business, right?
Mhm.
And how I got into that is my parents paid a guy to mow our lawn. And one day I walk out and I say, Bill, um, would you mind teaching me how to be a landscaper? So when you come, I'm gonna do the work. My parents will still pay you, but I'll do the work if you teach me.
Oh
And he was
wow.
like, sure. So every day, every couple of weeks, every other week he would come by, pull up, I go get the lawnmower off the truck, come do it. And he just showed me, give me some direction or whatever. And then what happened is my mother, and this is what a good woman looks like, right? So she sees what's going on. And so I'm around, 16 now. And so she buys me a El Camino, which is kind of like a truck,
Mhm.
right? And then she also gets me a lawnmower. And so by that time I'm working with Bill, and I'm doing our line, but then it's like, hey man, I got some other stuff I could use your help. You wanna work with me or work for me essentially. So I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah. So I started working with Bill. And then what happened was when my mom got me the truck and the lawnmower, Bill said, well, look, I got some accounts that, is more than I can handle. You can handle those accounts. Just throw me like 15
A
bucks.
percentage. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, bet.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, bet. So I was doing that. And that's how I afforded, took care of my car. That's how I kept gas in the car. That's how I got my school clothes and stuff. That's how I kept money in my pocket. And I think back to those times and I'm like, I thought I was a business owner, but I
Mm.
wasn't. I was
Right.
self-employed. Had I been a business owner, I would have had a branded name. I would have had accounts. I would have had bookkeeping. I would have had,
You would have been Bill.
yes. Well, even Bill wasn't a business owner.
Oh, okay.
Bill, he was self-employed.
He was self-employed because he actually anyone who's self-employed, the distinction is you're doing the work.
Right,
Being self-employed, you're doing
right,
the work.
right. And you can make money being self-employed, but it's hard to scale being self-employed. And that's
Mhm.
how you can distinguish the two. Like, oh, I want to scale my business. All right, well, and before you can scale your business, you need to create a business.
Right.
See, when I got into real estate, my mentor Dan Merrill, um, he started off with in football. He was an NFL player and got injured. He had a restaurant, and that didn't work out. And so he transitioned into real estate. And before long, he had a couple of his college buddies, and they're flipping houses. And before long, HGTV hits him up, and they say we're looking to do a reality show, and now you got flipped his house. And so now he's doing that thing. And long story short of it, I meet him at a real estate investors meeting, a RIA meeting. And this is when I first got started, me and my partner Clint, and we had just finished our first wholesale deal. We had made $28,000 with $100 investment. So we secured the contract to buy a two-family house in Providence for $100,
Oh,
and then we
wow.
flipped that contract to an end buyer, and we netted $28,000 doing that. And that took all of 60 days. So I share that story because at the same time I was working my job and I made 24,000 a year. And in this one transaction, I made more money in one transaction with roughly about 8 hours worth of work than I did all year.
Wow.
But then we're conditioned to think that you can't get rich quick,
In
you
60
know?
days, you got
Right. So I just compressed time. I compressed a whole year's worth of time into uh, uh, about 8 hours worth of work and 60 days worth of wait. And when I look back on it, I said, well, the issue is information.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
what we did, it's how we did, it's the strategy. And I picked that up from books. Like this was before YouTube and all these gurus and AI and VAs and
And
you know,
everybody's an expert.
yeah, this is before all of that. Like like what happened was this was back in 2008. I'm a housing counselor and I get a number of people coming in behind their mortgage. And I had a couple people say, Gerald, I'm ready to walk away from my house. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, that's an opportunity. I take the house. But then I'm like, well, I need to learn how, if I'm going to take the asset, I need to learn how to manage it.
Ah,
I need
yes.
to learn what to do with it. So I picked up a book, How to Invest in Real Estate with Little to No Cash or Credit, because that was my situation.
Oh,
And in
wow.
the book, it's talked about the strategy. So the reason
Yeah,
why, excuse my background, the
yeah, and
reason why,
everybody and anyone can get that book at Amazon today?
I don't know, I haven't looked at that book in 20
Yeah.
years.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And the information is consistent. What's in that book is consistent with what you find today, but there's multiple variations of it through the authors, right, that are out now. Like
Right.
anybody's talking wholesaling, they're talking fundamentally the same thing. They're just talking about their style of approach of wholesaling.
So,
You know,
so I want to ask, since you were doing the counseling, since there were so many people, what do you think was what was lacking for those people who you were counseling when they just said, "Hey, because you buy a house, for the long hauls, like 20, 15-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage, and hey, I want to grow into this and grow old and all of that, right?" And so, what would have someone, because I know you said earlier, the cash flow, and then and we know what you do with your money. It's like, why do you think that they came to that predicament in their life, and what do you think caused it for so many people?
well, well, society doesn't teach you how to invest in real estate.
Mm, mhm.
As a your personal home is not an investment unless it is. And
Yeah,
what do I mean by that?
yeah.
Well, it goes back to rich dad, poor dad. Assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take money out of your pocket. Your personal home is necessary because you need housing, right?
Right.
So in that case, I think it's better to own a house than rent because at best it's a glorified savings account. Every pay
Yeah.
mortgage payment, you're building equity, and you're positioning yourself for some options. But however, when you go into it thinking it's an investment and not treating it like an investment, that's where you make the mistake. And so
Right.
these people bought too much house because as an investor, we know how to identify an asset, we know how to structure it, we know how to derive the value out of it, and and simply put, you don't overpay for it,
Ah, yes.
you know.
Yes.
And during 2000, 6 and 7 and 8, people, um Bill Clinton did what he did with housing and made it more affordable, or he made it more available to own a home,
Yes.
but nobody learned how to evaluate real estate. And so most people back then bought a house with a adjustable rate mortgage, which is in and of itself is not a bad thing. In
Mhm.
fact, most investors use adjustable rate mortgages because they're not meant for 30 years, they're meant to cash flow the property for a short period of time because
Ah.
they're interest only,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And so, but the product was used incorrectly, and it was sold based on the premise of you buy the house now, the rate's low, and then in a couple of years you refinance into a more fixed rate.
Right. Yeah, I remember this one guy I went out on date with. He's like, "Oh yeah, my mortgage is like 1,500 a month." And it was a big house and I was just like, "How?" He's like, "Oh, I'm paying interest only." I said, "Why would you do that?" And he says, "Oh, well it works for me now." And so I was like, "Well, what do how much would the mortgage be without you just paying interest only?" So he got, stuck in that, and of course, whatever happened, the next time I touched base with him, he didn't have that house anymore.
Yeah, because he had a long term goal with a short term plan,
Mhm.
and didn't understand how to make that transition. And so for me, it's not the mortgage people that were wrong. It's the consumer didn't.
The
It's buyer
education.
beware. They didn't
Right.
know, and the people selling the product didn't know. They didn't
Ah,
know what they were selling. They were selling home ownership,
right.
and for that they did their job because these people got the homes.
Yes, they
And
did.
be and
They
then this is,
qualified.
yeah, but this is the economics of it. So now that money is available, it impacts the supply and demand, and and then that pushes the prices up, and
Right.
so it inflates these prices. But then what happened is, on the like behind the scenes, people's rates started to adjust, which made them sell the house because they couldn't refinance, and so they had to start doing short sales, and the short sales started dropping the values, so more people couldn't refinance, because again, their mortgage payment is not taking, it's not reducing the mortgage.
Right.
They're looking for the market to increase the equity position, and
So
that's
right. So the market was driving the everything. So the supply and demand and the market and was driving everything and why the prices were the price and why things were the way they were, and then that's why there was a whole boom that happened in that
yeah.
case.
But that's what would happen. That's what was happening in the streets.
Right.
But in the banking world, what
Yeah.
happened was they started creating these mortgage-backed securities, and they
Yes.
started packaging up all these loans and selling it to you and me. And when I say you and me, I
Oh.
mean our pension plans. I mean institutional money managers. That's who
Oh.
was buying. That's who was buying these products.
Oh wow.
That's
Yeah.
why,
Yeah.
that if you ever watch The Big Short, that's what's going on. And so when everything fell apart, that's why most people's 401k, turned into a 201k,
Right. Yes. And
because
it.
somebody
Yeah.
had to foot the bill. And then the banks needed to get bailed out, and so that's when the Federal Reserve and the bailed them out. So they went to the Federal Reserve, and again with Robert Kiyosaki, man. If you read the book, the Creature from Jekyll Island, it talks about the Federal Reserve Bank and how that system is set up, and that's why we see the bailouts when we have economic hardships,
Right.
because we got to keep the game going.
Exactly.
And
And I
so,
remember, yeah, with the
yeah,
automotive game, they got some of them got a bailout. Ford Motor Company didn't get a bailout.
right,
So I'm like,
right,
oh, I need to go get a Ford because they didn't need money from the government.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
so when, mhm.
go ahead.
So when you look at your career and when you look at how you got started, you made that first $28,000 in 60 days. So did that make you a real get on the right side? Because you were still working your job, so you were operating from the left side and the right side, or were you still operating from the left side when you did your first
No,
wholesale deal?
that experience changed my paradigm. You
Okay.
know, because in my experience was more like I knew it.
Ah.
I knew it, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since. Like I've been in the like well, entrepreneur, self-employed self-employed person since ever since then. So what I did was, back in 2008, I had a skill set. I was a HUD housing counselor,
Mhm.
and I saw the writing on the wall. All of my leads were pre foreclosure, and I couldn't use the wholesale strategy anymore because when the banks start falling apart, they stopped lending money.
Ah,
And
yes.
so there wasn't any money in the market, and that's when a lot of these investors, you know, started getting hammered because they couldn't restructure their debt. There was no money, and everybody was in foreclosure. And so I started a loss mitigation company. And loss mitigation is basically the options that you have when you're in pre foreclosure.
Ah.
Yeah. And so I started counseling, people and helping them navigate that whole game, either restructuring their debt with the mortgage company or liquidating the debt with a quick sale or short sale. And um, that's when I learned a lot of creative acquisition strategies during that time because I had a lot of people ready to walk away from their house.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I acquired some properties that way where, look, I'll take it over. This is how we need to do it. And that's where I got familiar with subject to and learned that strategy. And I flew out to Michigan actually to study with this lady, Wendy Patton. She
Mm.
was a expert in or is an expert in the lease options and met Joe McCall there. He's a creative deal structurer as well in real estate. And so that's what I do is when I hear about a strategy, now I'm aware. Now I want to see who's actually doing it, and I go and work with them. Hire them. There's a concept called novation,
Hmm.
and it's a variation of wholesaling. It's kind of new to the scene, but it's not a new concept. It's a very, a lot of these things are old things. They're just not publicized.
Right. And the
So,
laws are in place and we don't read the law book. We're not an attorney. So how do
right,
we know?
right. And
Yeah.
so, this novation concept, there's this gentleman named Eric Brewer,
Mhm.
and I was actually on the phone with one of his guys today. I'm gonna be basically hiring him to well, joining his program, getting his coaching, and looking to create a relationship. $7,500 investment, and I'm happy to pay it.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because uh, I've actually done novations, but I didn't call it that. I just was intuitive, and I structured the deal because I'm creative and out of the box thinking. And when he described it, I'm like, oh, I did that before, but I kind of figured it out, and he has a system of how he does it consistently, and that
Ah.
was the gap. That's
Mhm.
what makes you a business owner. That's the secret to making the transition from self-employed to business owner is when you have a system that that um, allows you to be consistent in the duplication of your efforts.
Exactly.
That's the secret sauce. And the other thing I'll say about business is structuring your business. Business
Mhm.
is more than just an LLC.
Right.
There's certain things that you have to do to structure your entity in order to position yourself to access, capital, corporate credit, like business credit, those types of
Mhm.
things. And I've learned a lot of that stuff with my relationships from Clubhouse, and that's made me a better business owner because now when we talk about debt, now I'm accessing and I'm able to access different types of debt.
Ah, okay. And then whenever you look at the opportunity, that you have for, being a business owner, building business credit, knowing your net worth, which is, like your assets minus your liabilities, that equals your net worth. And knowing that when people, look at their balance sheet, your personal, life balance sheet, and you mentioned earlier financial, planner, and it's just really amazing when like, hey, this is how much money that comes in, this is how much money that goes out, and then whether or not you have more money, more month in money, or that you've actually created a plan with your capital, which is your income, to actually make it work for you. And it sounds like you've done an excellent job with that, and you've had a lot of experience with it. And when you didn't have the experience, you sought the knowledge. And so I just want to say, acknowledge you for that, because it's like financial literacy is not taught in schools. in a lot of different states. I know the state I
Yeah.
grew up in, we had either accounting class or a bookkeeping class, and to choose from to graduate. But when we look at where money is taught and how money, it seems like you had the intelligence as a young child. It's like, oh yeah, let me learn something from someone, and then you created a business, and then you had the support. And so now, when you look at your life, then you now have the support of your various mentors. But I know that you're a mentor too. So we
Yeah.
definitely want to touch on that, because you have so much education, you have so much knowledge that you really want to share with people. Can you tell us a little bit more about how we can learn from you? And get in touch with you about saying, hey, I have a house, or I saw this house and it looked abandoned, or whatever it is. How can anyone like say, hey, yeah, I want to dip my toe in that pond and become a real estate investor? How can we learn more about that from you?
Yeah, so I have a simple course that I put together, and the goal was really to um, share my experiences as a counselor, actually. So with that, we start with your budget, because when you it's controlling your money. It's cash flow. So we want to know where you are. So what do you have for income? What do you have for expenses? Just like in a business, you have your financials, you have your income statement, your balance sheet, and then you have your statement of cash flow. So it's, where's your money going? So I always start people off with that, and then I also look at the debt. I use the debt snowball concept, and I focus more on the lowest balance, not the highest interest rate, because me
Ah,
personally, I don't get moved by the interest rates. High, like when I borrow money, I typically pay anywhere from 15 to 20% interest on my debt. But I tend to make 15 to 20,000 or 30,000 in profit from leveraging this debt. So it's all relative. You just account for it and you build it into the deal. With all of that said, I've learned about how to manage that. Is having it organized,
right.
being consistent, and really being in communication with your creditors. And understanding, let them understand where you are with everything. Because it's all about paying them back. And again, being debt positive, it's about using debt to increase cash flow and equity position. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
with all of that said, we go over the debt snowball so you can start getting comfortable with debt and how to manage it, how to effectively reduce it, those types of things. And that's an important piece of what I teach, because debt is a powerful tool. Think about it. If you're a veteran, and you want to go buy a home, they have programs that allow you to purchase properties with literally no money out of pocket or little to no money down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 200, $300,000 quote unquote asset, and the bank is lending you money, but nobody has really ever taught you how to manage those obligations, you
Mm.
know,
Yes.
and so understanding how to manage debt and leverage debt is important. We get into again, setting up your structure the proper way. We get into estate planning, um, because in addition to um, as you build wealth, you want to do it inside of a trust. When we
Mm-hmm.
in our community, we talk about wills all the time.
Yeah.
Was there a will? Was there a will? And the more I studied estate planning, the more, because I was a senior advisor. I dealt with seniors. I talked to them about Medicare. I helped them, transition into retirement,
Mm-hmm.
understanding how to, what to do with those assets that they've accumulated over time. And uh, so, like I said, I learned a lot about it. And there's four
Mm-hmm.
different things that attack your nest egg, right?
Mm.
It's taxes,
Taxes.
it's probate,
Mm-hmm.
market fluctuation, and the cost of long-term care. And so,
Mm.
as a financial planner or financial advisor, um, those are the four things that I'm accounting for. And when it comes to probate, that's where the trust structure and insurance, they both avoid. Those are tools that avoid probate.
Yes.
And so, the issue though is a lot of
Yeah.
attorneys. or accountants, they don't advise people to set up those types of structures. They say
Right.
wait until you have assets, then do it. And I'm
Right.
saying lay the foundation. You don't build the house walls first, you know, you
True.
know, lay the foundation, establish a trust, and then as you acquire assets, you acquire those assets in trust. And that's when you hear the control every own nothing, control everything. These are concepts that the wealthy use. But then the other thing is we need to understand how these things work, and that's
Mhm.
that's what we don't understand. So I start touching on that. I expose you to those types of concepts and ideas because as you build wealth, and this is the way to close the wealth gap. The reason
Mhm.
why there is a wealth gap in the black community is because even when we do have assets, those assets don't transfer to the next generation.
Right.
And if they do, the next generation doesn't have the understanding or knowledge to manage it because wealth is managed.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
high net worth individuals, they have what we call family offices, and a family office is not the office in your house. It, you know, a
Right.
family office is a group of advisors that you employ to help you manage and increase your wealth.
Right.
You know,
I actually worked for a couple of private corporations
yes,
who had a entity within their corporation to take care of their family name
yes.
to keep
That
it going for
see,
years on end. Yes.
that's intention.
Yes.
And inside of that, there's a concept called private equity.
Mhm.
One of the richest black men in America, Robert Smith,
Yes.
how he got there is through private equity. He has a fund.
Oh
That's
wow.
a high level of fundraising. And private equity is basically when you set up an entity to do business, you create this asset that um, you create an asset and you create, you know, uh,
Mhm.
how do I want to explain this? So when you create the asset, you establish um, equity in it, you
Mhm.
establish shares,
Right.
and then how you raise capital for the businesses, you can share those, you can sell those shares to
Mhm.
fund the business.
Right.
And if you don't do it on the public market like the stock market, then you do it in private, so it's privately held companies, that i.e. private equity.
Right.
So when I started borrowing money for real estate, I would use promissory notes and I would take loans. And when you take a loan, that's called debt.
Mhm.
So it's debt funding. And loan is simple. It's a term, it's an interest rate. Sometimes you have collateral, sometimes you don't. But it's a straightforward contract. Lend me 10,000 a day. I'll pay you 12,000 in tomorrow, right?
Mhm.
Or 60 days or whatever the term. Take that money, you put it to work, you do what you got to do, you pay it back. That's the debt. That's like a credit card. You know,
Right.
they have terms, you pay it. Equity is different. With equity investors, they take on some of the risk.
Hmm. Okay.
So when I raise money on a deal as a partner and I say, hey, we're gonna go and do this flip, I'm putting up, 50 grand, you put up 50 grand. We own, the property, the business together, the entity that's buying the property together. You have
Mhm.
50% equity. I have 50% equity. You're also saying you have 50% liability. I have 50% liability. Like and in some cases it's 100%, like depending on, the situation,
Okay.
and so um, when I understood that, uh, when I got that contract on that
Mhm.
first property and I secured it with $100, I had what's called an equitable interest in that property. So I
Mm.
didn't own. This is how wholesaling works. By the way, I didn't own the property. I owned the rights to buy the property at a certain price.
Mm.
And so when I found an end buyer, I sold my rights to own, to buy that property at that price for a different price, and that's
Hmm.
that's how I made the money. But what I also understood and I came to grown to understand is when I secured the contract, I had an equitable interest, and I could also sell off some of my equitable interests. And now, rather than wholesale it, I can actually joint venture with my equity partner,
Mhm.
and I can retain a certain percentage of the value of the deal. So I would start making more money because
Mhm.
rather than wholesaling and getting paid off and selling it, I would partner, retain some of the equity, and then just do the deal.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? So on
Yes.
a wholesale, maybe I can make 5 to 10,000, but on a JV, maybe I can make 30 to 40,000. It just
Right.
takes me longer.
Well, thank you so much for your insight on that. You guys got a freebie tonight
Yeah,
from Gerald Price,
yeah,
the real estate G.
yeah.
Log into his website, go fill out the form. He has a consultation that he can do with you, and just schedule it and get on his calendar. He's invested in real estate in other countries, and I know a lot of you guys are probably wanting to be expats. I'm like, can you help a person out if they just want to leave the country, leave the United States and go live somewhere else abroad?
Oh yeah,
Gerald,
yeah.
okay.
I got so again, it's all relationships. It's all
Yes.
relationships, and I definitely go to Bird Dog Education. Set up the one-on-one. With that, we what we do is a game plan. I figure out what you're trying to do, what your goals are, and then I help build a plan because it's specific to you. My course is $997. The one-on-one is $97. With the course, that's for people that really want to just get into real estate and start that business, and I help you set that up. And with that, we meet, we have group calls, we have a lot of one-on-ones. I actually get on the phone with your leads if needed, to help
Yeah.
structure it, because I like to teach you about it, then I like to demonstrate it, and then I like to watch you do it and critique it. That's how I learn. So that's how I teach. And for me, I don't have all the big price points on my coaching. Not that there's something wrong with it. I just this is what I do. So if you had 20 grand and you wanted to get into real estate, I would say pick up my course, put the 20 grand in escrow,
Mhm.
and let's find
Yeah.
a deal so you can invest it the right way. And
Right.
versus pay somebody the 20 grand. And mind you, I paid those 20,000, 40,000, 50,000 for coaching, and it's worth it. But I'm also intentional when I make those investments because I know what I'm paying for. I'm paying for relationships. I'm paying for high level knowledge, and sometimes it's just like with this $7,500 for this Novation thing. I'm paying because he did all the work. He has all the legal documents ready to go. He has a system, so that's what I'm paying
Right.
for. But I'm
Exactly.
but I'm clear on it. And a lot of times what happens is we have an idea of what we want to do, and we see
Mhm.
somebody doing it, but we're not clear when we make that investment.
Right.
And so you
Exactly.
don't get you don't get what you're looking for, and you think it's their fault, and it's not. It's your fault because you weren't intentional with your investment and your purchase. So, with that, my structure is set up because I want to see you succeed. This information was God has put me in the right places, and so I don't want to create. I don't want the cost to create a roadblock to get to it, but I also can't give it away for free because then you don't value it. So with that, I appreciate the platform and the time, and I hope we help somebody.
Yes, me
I
too.
know we help somebody. I know we help somebody.
Right. I
Yeah.
know the many people that can will listen to this, and I know that they'll be in touch with you. And is there a better other way other than going through Bird Dog Education to reach you that you
Well,
would
I'm
like
on,
to
I'm
share?
on I'm on Instagram at Mr. G Price Jr.
Okay.
MRGPRICEJR on Instagram. I mean, so it's gonna get harder and harder to get in touch with me because again, I'm getting into bigger business, and when you do that, you got to put some gatekeepers in the way. you know.
Okay.
So yeah, so with all of that said, I'm on Clubhouse a lot too. That's the best. I love that platform, just because of the nature of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how you tap in. Obviously, if you set up the one-on-one, you'll have my cell phone number, and we,
Yep.
we'll be, I'm available.
Yes, so go to birddogeducation.com for Gerald Price, the real estate G. It is an investment that's worth your time and money. Thank you so much, Gerald, for joining me tonight on Power Fighters Live. You've given a lot of powerful It's been a powerful conversation. You've given a lot of wisdom and insights for people who want to make a difference and make a change in their life and actually move from the left side, being self-employed, to the right side to actually be a business owner. So thank an investor. So thank you so much for imparting on your wisdom this evening. We do appreciate you very much. And as we always say, be, do, and have the greatness that you desire because the greatness is in you. And this, you've heard the real estate G, Gerald Price, tonight. So thank you so much. Take care and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gerald.
Yep.